Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Wanted to start out by thanking some of my Clemson friends that I've met over the last few days through social media and have gotten them to subscribe to the channel. So thank you so much to all my Clemson friends that I've met through social media for subscribing, and I hope you all enjoy today's video. Today's video is going to be a top 10 countdown. Of course, we do one every single Wednesday here on the channel, and today's top 10 video is going to be college football related for all you college football fans out there. And if you know somebody who's a college football fan and they have not yet subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and tell them to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it, as we always do. It's totally free, and it only takes about 10 seconds. And then, of course, you can click that notification bell and get notified every single day, because we do post videos daily here on the channel. And this week's top 10 countdown is by request, and it's either requested by my buddy Eric or my buddy Mike. I don't recall which one asked me, but one of them did. Both of them have asked me about 3 or 4 different topics that involve college football for weekly top 10s. And I'm going to go ahead and do one today, and then I might save a couple for the college football season, so that even during the week on Wednesday, when there's no games going on, we'll have a top 10 countdown that is about college football, so we can stay on college football. And then I had a friend of mine at work on Tuesday night that asked me if I could do a couple of college football top 10 countdowns. So hopefully, Chris, when you watch this video, you'll remember to remind me so that I don't forget to do yours as well. So Eric or Mike, whichever one of y'all asked me to do this top 10 countdown is for you. This week's top 10 countdown is going to be best college football stadium atmospheres. Now, let me go ahead and say before I start, I was talking to a good friend of mine named Ethan at work yesterday, and he said, you can't do a top 10 best stadium atmospheres unless you've been to all the stadiums. And I said, yes, you can. I mean, unless you work in the media, or unless you're a player or a coach, or unless you're just rich, it's going to be hard to find somebody that's been to 55 or 60 different stadiums, because first of all, you have to be available every single weekend for 4 months every single year in order to do it, and you have to have a lot of money. So no, I have not been to all these stadiums, but you have to go by what you see on TV and what you hear from different people and what you hear from fans and what you read in magazines. And that's how you base the best stadium atmospheres. But if you know somebody that's been to a ton of stadiums, please feel free to tell them to watch this video. And I will say this before I get into the top 10 countdown. I want to say it was the 2018 season, but I could be wrong. But as a Clemson fan, I listen to all 6 hours of the pregame show every time they play. And either the 17 or 18 season, they had 2 fans that came on the pregame show. And I think it was the week that Clemson played Boston College in Chestnut Hill, but I could be wrong. I'm just going by memory. But they had 2 fans that came on the pregame show, and they were not Clemson fans. They were just college football fans. And they had said that they were trying to make it their life goal to go to every big-time stadium in college football so that they could, compare which stadiums are good, which stadiums are bad, and things like that. So if you know somebody that's been to a ton of stadiums, please feel free to tell them to watch this video, because I would love to hear what they think. But you can watch most of these games on TV, or listen to them on the radio, or listen to the actual radio when people are talking about it, and read articles and find out a lot about these stadiums, whether you've actually been there or not. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into our top 10 best stadium college atmospheres. Number 10 on the list is Kyle Field, which is the home of the Aggies of Texas A&M. They call it the home of the 12th man. That's number 10 on the list. Number 9 is Camp Randall Stadium, which of course is the home of the Wisconsin Badgers. Number 8 is Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, which is the home of the Florida Gators. Number 7 on the list is Florida State's stadium, which of course is called Doak Campbell Stadium. Number 6, and I know there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be surprised that this is this low on my personal opinion of the top 10, but after I tell you what it is, I'm going to tell you a reason why it's right here. But number 6 on the list is Bryant-Denny Stadium, which is the home of Alabama. And the reason why, I know they're one of the 3 or 4 prolific programs in the country right now, but the reason why I have them number 6 as far as college football stadium atmospheres is because during football season, I pretty much, if I'm not at work, I pretty much listen to sports talk day and night, on the way to work, on the way home, on my off days, on the way to wrestling, because I love college football that much. And I've heard numerous fans over the years that are Alabama fans call in different local, regional, and national radio shows talking about Alabama Stadium being so dead and how they can't believe that Alabama's so good, but yet their atmosphere is so bad. The only real time that you actually hear Alabama fans be loud consistently is when they play an 8 o'clock primetime game. And you can go to any stadium with any team that's relevant to a primetime game, and it's going to be loud. But I heard a fan after an Ole Miss game one time, and I heard a fan after a South Carolina game one time, and I heard a fan after a Mississippi State game one time. I'll talk about how by halftime the stadium was just completely dead. So if your stadium is going to be that quiet for a noon kickoff, then you can't be any higher than number 6 on the list. And before we get into the top 5, we'll recap numbers 10 through 6. Number 10 was Kyle Field, home of the Texas A&M Aggies. Number 9 was Camp Randall Stadium, home of the Wisconsin Badgers. Number 8, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, home of the Florida Gators. Number 7, Florida State Seminoles, Doak Campbell Stadium. And number 6 is Alabama Crimson Tide and Bryant-Denny Stadium. Now we'll go ahead and get into our top 5. Number 5 is going to be hard for a lot of people to comprehend unless you're a massive college football fan, because this is a team that honestly, really, truly is only on TV one time a year, unless you have that really expensive cable package or really expensive satellite package where you have 500 something channels. So it's really hard to know how loud their stadium is unless you have all of those channels. But number 5 on the list is, some call them the Black Knights, some call them the Cadets, but it's Army, with Michie Stadium, I believe, is the correct pronunciation. I know it's spelt Michie, but I believe the correct pronunciation is Michie Stadium, home of the Army Cadets. But if you ever watch them when they play Navy, that stadium is always loud, no matter where the game is played at. But I have seen Army a few other times throughout the year on one of the oddball channels that you have to pay a lot of money to have, and their stadium is always loud. But I can't put it any higher than number 5 because of the fact they usually play in the daytime, and every stadium is going to be louder at nighttime. And they're normally not bad, but they're not great. Of course, the higher ranking you have, the louder your stadium is going to be, because every game you play means more. Number 4 on my list, and this just shows that even though I'm a Clemson fan, that I'm unbiased, and I try to be informative and not show favoritism. But number 4 on my list is the real Death Valley, Memorial Stadium. in Clemson, South Carolina. It's number 4 on my list. And in my heart, it's number 1. But I know in reality, it's not number 1. And one of the main reasons why it can't be number 1 is because, first of all, Clemson doesn't get enough home games at nighttime for it to be number 1. But also, they're so much better than their competition that the majority of the games they play are over at halftime. So by the second half, the stadium is dead. And plus, back to what I was talking about earlier, being a huge college football fan, you'd be surprised how many times over the years where I've been to a game and by halftime, I ain't going to say half, but probably about a quarter of the fans get up and leave. And then at the end of the third quarter, about a quarter of the fans get up and leave. There's a guy that works here locally in the media that's always complaining about the Clemson fans leaving at halftime because it looks bad, and it does look bad. And a lot of times, most of the time, it's because the game is a blowout, so they think, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and leave and get out of here and beat the traffic. But it does look bad on TV when it's middle of the third quarter and the stadium is halfway empty. And also, like I said, Clemson is so much better than their competition that normally by halftime, half the fans have done checked out because they know the game is over with. But number 4 on my list is the real Death Valley Memorial Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina. Number 3 is Beaver Stadium, which is the home of the Penn State Nittany Lions. And I will say that even though their uniforms are just so bland and so boring, in my opinion, that when they play those whiteout games and everybody wears all white, I think that looks really, really good on TV. I can't say how it feels to be there, but on TV it looks really nice. Number 2 on my list is Ohio Stadium, which is the home of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And number 1 on my list is the fake Death Valley, which is Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, home of the LSU Tigers. And the reason why it's number 1 is because, like I said earlier about night games, almost every single one of LSU's games, if they play anybody of relevance, it's going to be played at nighttime. And those Cajun fans, by 8 o'clock at night, Eastern Time, 7 o'clock at night, Central Time, they have done got wound up, and that stadium is loud. And I've heard numerous people over the years and read numerous articles from different people that work for different teams and different companies, different media outlets, and they all talk about how loud Tiger Stadium is, the fake Death Valley in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, home of the LSU Tigers. So they're number 1 on my list. If you have any thoughts on this list and who you think should have been on the list or should have not been on the list, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. And Eric or Mike, whichever one of y'all it was that requested the top 10 best stadium atmospheres, hope you enjoyed the video. Before we get out of here, like I always do, I'll run down a few teams that barely missed the list. One team that barely missed the list was Michigan. Michigan's got a loud stadium and got a huge stadium. But in order to have a good atmosphere and be considered a consistent atmosphere, you've got to have a loud stadium all the time. And Michigan, now being a 7 or 8 win team, their stadium just doesn't have the atmosphere that it used to have. Now, if we would have been on this channel 15 years ago doing this list, Michigan probably would have been on it. But the loud stadiums and loud atmospheres come from being a good football team. The better you are, the more fans you get. The more fans you get, the louder it gets. Another team that barely missed the list was Auburn at Jordan Hare, or as they claim it's pronounced, Jordan Hare Stadium, and they're just like Michigan. Auburn Stadium is loud, and when they play Alabama at home, it's still loud. But being loud one time a year doesn't make you consistent enough to be considered a top 10 best atmosphere, so they barely missed the list. Oklahoma also barely missed the list. And for all you Georgia Bulldog fans out there, don't worry. I'd have Georgia probably at about number 125. No, I'm just kidding. That's for you, Eric. I know you're a dog fan. I'm just aggravating you because you're a good friend of mine. Georgia is another team that barely missed the list. And let me go back to what I was talking about earlier with Clemson. If we would have been doing this show 20 years ago, I wouldn't have had Clemson on the list because even though I was a fan back then, they were a 6 or 7 win team. And being a 6 or 7 win team is not going to give you a loud enough stadium atmosphere to put you in the top 10. I remember going to the game, and if all my Clemson fans out there watch this video, I'm sure some of them will recall this too. 2003, Clemson played Florida State, and it was a home game, and it was either 7:45 or 8 o'clock on Saturday night. I took a good friend of mine from work, and it was the first college football game he'd ever been to. And Clemson played Florida State, and Florida State was at the time number 3 in the country. And Clemson at the time was unranked, and they were 5-4. And of course, it was Tommy Bowden versus Daddy Bobby Bowden. And supposedly, Tommy was on the hot seat going into that game. Now, how true that was, we'll never know because Clemson won the game. But supposedly, if Clemson had lost that night, he was going to be fired after the South Carolina game, which was the very next week. But anyway, Clemson was 5-4, and Florida State was 8-1, ranked 3rd in the country. Florida State's quarterback was Chris Ricks, and Clemson had Charlie Whitehurst, of course. And then, of course, they also had Aaron Hunt, who kicked 4 field goals that night. And Clemson won the game 26-10. And it wasn't really that close. It was really 26-3 with like 5 minutes to go in the game, and Florida State got a useless touchdown, and it made it 26-10. And Florida State fell to, I think, 9th in the polls the following Monday. But if you were at the game that night, like I was, and my good friend from work that I still work with was there, you would have thought that was the best atmosphere in the country. And it was on that night. But it was only on that night because it was a night game and because they played Florida State, who was 3rd in the country. So it don't matter how bad your team is, if a really good top 5 or top 10 team comes to your team's stadium, you're going to get loud. But having a good atmosphere for that one game does not make you a consistent top 10 team. So if we would have been doing this countdown 20 years ago, I wouldn't have put Clemson on the list. But being that they're so good now, they came in at number 4. So if you did not catch the entire video, please go back and watch the whole video. It was our top 10 countdown of the best college football stadium atmospheres. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day. Every morning, I announce to my family that I'm going jogging, but then I don't go. It's a running joke. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.